breaking news from New York City. It is shocking and terribly sad. NBC News can now confirm that fashion designer Kate Spade was found dead in her apartment this morning. Police are reporting that she was found by a staff member. The cause of death is being investigated. Kate Spade was only 55 years old. It was only 4 months ago that the Philadelphia Eagles were basking in the euphoria of their Super Bowl victory over the New England Patriots. Millions of fans flooding the city of brotherly love, celebrating the underdog Eagles in a party-like atmosphere that lasted for days, long after the confetti was cleared. But there will not be a party at the White House after President Trump abruptly canceled the celebration honoring the Super Bowl champs. It was supposed to be today, after nearly all the players and coaches said that they would boycott the visit over the president's demands that players stand for the national anthem. NBC News has learned President Trump called off the visit because he was aware of the bad optics of having fewer than 10 people, including players and coaches, attend this event. The move sparked immediate backlash from disappointed fans.
You would think that he would allow the players that want to go, that want to support him, to be there, and it's a little disappointing.
Players that do want to go, they should have the right to go. It's the White House, and they were just practicing, free speech.
In a statement issued only moments ago, the White House saying, quote, the vast majority of the Eagles team decided to abandon their fans. Well, joining me now by phone is Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Your reaction to the cancellation today of the celebration of the Eagles?
Well, I mean, that was the president's decision. Obviously, crowd size was a concern for him. And there wasn't going to be enough people there to kind of stroke his ego, so he decided to cancel it. But his assertion that somehow the Eagles have abandoned their fans, you really don't have a clue about, or he doesn't have a clue about the Eagles fan base to think that the Eagles had ever abandoned their fans or their fans had ever abandoned the Eagles. It's been 50 years since we are winning our first Super Bowl. And even when we were terrible, winning 1 or 2 games a year, 3 games a year, the fan base was still down at the vet and then down at the Lincoln Financial Field. So I just think it's clearly that the White House is out of touch with the Eagles organization and the Eagles fan base.
Do you smell a hint of politics in all of this? I mean, there were no Eagle players, no Eagle player took a knee or stayed in the locker room during the national anthem during all of last season.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole issue over the anthem is just ridiculous, and it probably would have gone away on its own. I think players have the right, the First Amendment right, to respond to things they think are wrong in our society. I, as a privileged white male, stand and cover my heart when the national anthem is played because I have a reason to. It's been beneficial to me to be in this country. But there are other people who don't have the same experience that I have, and they want to express their disdain or anger over the way things go in this country sometimes, and I think the First Amendment covers their right to do that. The Eagles, by and large, as an organization and as individual players, are very concerned with the community and involve themselves in charitable work and in fighting for criminal justice reform and hunger and all kinds of things. And I'm very proud of this team and the Eagles organization. They are great corporate citizens, and they're great people.
Now, there is some criticism that they have canceled their community service opportunities in D.C. today because they're not going to be here. I don't know if there's some way that they can make that up.
That's up to them, but by and large, what they do here in Philadelphia, in our region, is extremely important to us. They rebuild playgrounds. They're involved in checking kids for need for eyesight, for glasses. They're involved in medical help for our poor kids. Carson Wentz is doing a hunger issue. He's going to put a free food truck out there in neighborhoods to serve healthy food to people. Malcolm Jenkins is involved in criminal justice reform. Chris Long the same. So I mean, they're stellar individuals, and I don't think the president understands that.
Well, Mayor Kenney, thank you very much for joining us today. I know it's a busy day for you, but we really appreciate your perspective.
Thanks, Audrey. Nice talking to you again. Thank you.
You too. And joining me now is Jonathan Jones, Sports Illustrated national NFL writer, and Yamiche Alcindor, White House correspondent for PBS NewsHour and an MSNBC contributor. So, Jonathan, what is your takeaway from this? The Eagles thrust into this controversy with the White House. It seems as though it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, again, it's not very surprising, Andrea. The last time that we spoke, we talked about the anthem policy and how it was a bunch of half measures designed to satisfy everyone and ultimately doesn't satisfy anyone. Donald Trump again taking aim at the NFL. This is very easy for him to do. You have a league that's 70% black. You have a league that, didn't allow him to become an owner back in the 80s. And now, Donald Trump, as we all know, he loves to play the hits. And when he says something about the NFL, when he talks about the players, it doesn't necessarily matter who stayed in the locker room or who knelt or who raised a fist. Those facts don't matter to him, and they don't really even matter to his base. He knows that he can say that and stoke the flames with his base.
Now, Yamiche, there was a White House statement about all of this, saying that we will proudly be playing the national anthem and other wonderful music, celebrating our country today at 3 p.m. The White House with the United States Marine Band and the United States Army Chorus honoring America, NFL, no escaping to locker rooms. So they're going to have an event at 3 o'clock when they would have been welcoming the Eagles. Do we know what this event will be?
Well, the White House is saying that it's going to be a celebration of the American flag with Eagles fans. And this statement really walks through the president's thinking when it comes to the optics of this. He did not want to be standing in a room with several representatives and not a full team of NFL players kind of showing their support for this president. As a result, he's now having this event. And part of that statement says that the Eagles are abandoning their fans and that they showed a lack of good faith when dealing with the White House. So you see the president here, I think, trying to drive a wedge between Eagles fans and the football players. And I think it's important to say that while some of these players, and while none of the players really for the Eagles took a knee, there are a lot of players who have actual political differences with this president. And instead of really talking about that, instead of really kind of thinking through that idea, the president wants it to be this broad idea about the national anthem, when there could be several other things that these players don't agree with and have nothing to do with the national anthem.
Is there any sense, to Jonathan, is there any sense that this is another attempt at distraction? Because there's some bad news in the last couple of days on the legal front, on the Mueller front, on the Manafort front.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something he's been doing for more than 2 years. Hey, look over here while this is going on. Again, going back to playing the hits. And I'll just say this one thing. When you talk about, hey, some people say you should go to the White House because you have an audience with the president. You can make your point. How often in these meetings with Donald Trump do people come away, one, with the truth from the meeting not even being told afterward, or two, as we're seeing now, the meeting being canceled before it even happens?
Yamiche, is there any consideration at the White House that this is, creating more friction among people, among races, between maybe the president's base and the NFL?
I don't think so, because the president really, I think, likes this issue. He thinks that this is an issue that's a winning issue for him. Remember that the first time he started talking about the NFL and players taking a knee because of police brutality was in Alabama, and it was during a rally for Luther Strange. And then, even then, he did not have to talk about the NFL. There wasn't a pressure there for him to comment. So this was something that the president inserted himself into, and he thinks that the issue is something that makes him look like a patriot, makes him feel good about his base. And it really it's an issue that he thinks is something that people will side with him on. I think what's hard here is that there are a lot of people who are looking at this and saying that it's really kind of just tearing apart America, and it's really kind of making people be very angry at each other, because now you, of course, have people that are going to be arguing about whether or not the Eagles should have just come, whether or not the Eagles were disrespecting the president. Now you have this event where these fans are going to be, essentially, if they come to the White House, they're going to be dealing with an administration that has been bad talking the Super Bowl champions. And as someone who knows a lot of Eagles fans, a lot of these Eagles fans are very excited, love these players, feel very happy that this squad was able to make it happen for their city. And now the president's saying you shouldn't really be celebrating those men, and that's a really hard thing to say.
Yamiche and Jonathan, thanks so very much to you all on a day when we are celebrating the Eagles, whether they're here or not. And coming up, California governor's make or break day for Democrats in California. We'll break it all down for you next. Plus, fight for your right. Alyssa Milano leading the new women's movement. You're watching Andrea Mitchell Reports only on MSNBC. Our song, it's primary day. 8 states holding primaries today, but the focus is on California, where the top 2 finishers, regardless of party, move on to the general election. This is playing out as a critical test for whether Democrats can retake the House. California's 39th district in Orange County has a huge field of Democratic candidates hoping to flip the once mainly white and Republican district. And that's where we find NBC's Jacob Soboroff in today's installment of his series, Up for Grabs.
Jacob, what's up, man?
Good to meet you.
How are you?
Yeah, thanks for
So
coming
this is campaign headquarters.
This is headquarters.
Ah, nice, man. This is cool.
Yeah, this is where the work gets done to flip this seat.
Flipping this seat, California's 39th, was once considered highly likely by national Democrats after Hillary Clinton won here in 2016 and longtime Republican Congressman Ed Royce announced his retirement. But there are 6 Democrats running in the primary and no clear frontrunner. So Democrat Sam Jamal is calling every last voter he can before the polls close on Tuesday.
Hello, is Grant available?
Grant is not at this number.
Hello, is James available?
Nope.
Nope. Hi, this is Sam Jamal. I'm running for Congress in our community and wanted to call to introduce myself.
You already have our support.
That must feel pretty good.
Yeah, those are always the best calls. Yeah.
Do you get the sense that the national Democrats really know what's going on in the district?
I think what they're missing the cues is they're just looking at demographics. We are a very diverse district, and this is a district where people will be open to supporting Democrats, but you still have to make the case.
Do you know she might be your next congressperson?
Skinny?
Tôi đã đứng ra ứng cử dân biểu liên bang địa hạt này. Yes.
It's true.
Isn't that? Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Democrat Dr. May Tran, who came to the U.S. from Vietnam as a refugee when she was 9, thinks she can connect to the diverse residents of this majority-minority district. But she's got another problem to deal with.
Is it true that the national Democrats asked you to get out of the race?
Well, they just called me and said, look, you know, we did a poll. The poll shows that, you know, you don't have any viability, so you should consider dropping out.
Was that a crazy thing to hear?
Oh my gosh, it was. And I said, well, first, who gave you that right? And secondly, how dare you? How dare you?
It's a funny thing to hear from a Democrat.
I know. I didn't want to do that.
There are actually more Republicans than Democrats running in the 39th. But one of them is endorsed by the outgoing congressman, and she seems to be the clear frontrunner. Former California Assemblywoman Young Kim.
Welcome to 39th District.
This is the district the Democrats think is one of the most flippable in the country.
You know what? Not so. Look, this is a very vibrant business district. I've talked to every single one of them, and they come and talk to me about the issues that they care about. 안녕하세요. 지금 저희 영킴 네, 영킴이에요. 반갑습니다. We haven't had a voice, Asian American voice in Washington for too long.
They feel like people here don't represent them.
Yes. Young Kim.
Young Kim, they know you.
Yes.
She's famous here. She's a big star. Are you gonna vote for her?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Are you gonna vote for her on Tuesday?
Yes.
It's amazing. Everywhere you go, people know you. I mean, of course, she says. What do you think? Is the fact that the Democrats targeted this district based on its diversity? I mean, were they overconfident?
I don't know what they're thinking, but to be honest with you, this is a district, not just because it's an Asian American, they should automatically think that they're going to be voting Democrat.
The idea that Democrats might have thought diversity equals Democrat, what do you say to that?
Not so fast.
Not so fast.
Not so fast.
Not so fast. Joining me now, Jacob Soboroff, who, of course, is in Fullerton, California, in the 39th. So, Jacob, you're finding everything sort of thrown up in the air here.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Andrea. It's this top 2 system, and the idea was to get more participation, more of a choice, less of a partisan bent on the elections here in California. But with the enthusiasm after Donald Trump was elected president, you got a lot of Democrats running for office here, and a lot of Republicans, frankly, after Ed Royce in his 39th district decided to step down. Diversity was one of the things that Democrats thought this was going to make it one of the most flippable districts in America, and it turns out, because of the partisan infighting amongst the Democrats, DCCC asking May Tran, that candidate, to get out of the race, it looks like you could have a Korean-American Republican congresswoman from this district when it's all said and done.
Jacob Soboroff, what a great day in California. Everyone should vote. And joining me now is Bob Shrum, director of the USC Institute of Politics, longtime Democratic strategist. Bob, it's great to see you. Tell me, have the Democrats really shot themselves in the foot here by fielding so many candidates that they're going to divide up the field and maybe elect Republicans instead?
Well, we won't know that until tomorrow night. It could happen. Young Kim is in a lot of trouble if a Democrat comes through. What she needs is to have 2 Republicans in the final. Look, Donald Trump is the great turnout engine for Democrats, but he's also the great recruitment engine in terms of persuading Democratic candidates to run. So that's why you had so many candidates run. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee has tried to intervene. I think it's possible that Democrats have begun to figure out that they've got to vote for the candidate who has the best chance, but it could happen in 2 or 3 of these seats. If it doesn't happen, then there are 7 seats up, and I think the Democrats have a very good chance to flip them.
And if they were to flip those 7, that's 7 out of the 23 that they need net to turn the House. So California really is the zone for trying to get this done. Let's talk about the rest of the ticket. You've got the governor's race. You've got the Senate race. Dianne Feinstein, probably the best known candidate. She's 85 years old. She's ranking on judiciary, a leader on intelligence. And is she in some trouble?
Well, in our USC Dornsife LA Times poll, she's winning across every demographic group. She has a very large lead. The real question here is whether or not her opponent in the fall will be Kevin De Leon, the Democratic president of the state Senate. He's running 30, 40 points behind her, but he could come in second. And the real question is whether or not a Republican like Paul Bradley, who spent virtually no money, but who has some numbers in the polls, could catch up with him. This 2-tier primary, or top 2 primary system, has not worked the way, for example, Arnold Schwarzenegger expected it to. It was to produce moderate candidates. But what it's done is it's produced polarization, so that a lot of people say, you know, Republican leaders like Meg Whitman are actually for Antonio Villaraigosa in the governor's race. But Republican rank and file go in, they look at the D after his name, and they're not going to vote for him.
I want to ask you about what happened 50 years ago today. It was the end of the California primary. I read your piece. You were a law student at Harvard, and I was a fledgling reporter, and we had just gone through the horror of what happened in April to Martin Luther King Jr. And then Bobby Kennedy. The shock, and it changed history in a profound way in the Democratic Party.
Oh, well, I think it changed history for America. I think the Vietnam War would have ended much sooner. I think you would have seen a new kind of great society that actually localized power and empowered people. I think if Robert Kennedy had gone on, and we don't know that he would have won the nomination in the election, but if he had lived, he might have, and we would not have had Watergate. More than that, I think, and this is what I wrote in the piece, he actually provides lessons for today, for the Democratic Party and for the country. He first of all provides the lesson that you don't have to talk down to people with a 3rd grade vocabulary in order to reach them. Secondly, he showed that you could stand up for economic justice and social justice at the same time. You don't have to choose one over the other. So he could win counties in primaries that George Wallace, the segregationist governor of Alabama, had won 4 years before, but at the same time he had enormous support from African Americans. He was a light in a very dark time. It was a night I will never forget.
I agree with that, and we'll see the commemorations at Arlington tomorrow as well. Thank you so much, Bob Shrum. Great to see you.
You're welcome. Take care.
And we have a statement now from Paul Manafort, from a spokesperson, Jason Maloney. Mr. Manafort is innocent. Nothing about this latest allegation changes our defense. We will do our talking in court, not addressing the allegation of, specifically at least, the allegation of witness tampering. Coming up next, who's the boss?